But you've got me speechless, Graham. Okay, just to remind everybody, of course, this is being recorded. We'll go on to the business of the Committees Committee for the 11th of June. Okay, good morning, members, and welcome to Committees Committee this morning. I extend a warm welcome to Doug Fairbairn, who's taken Ian Carruthers' place. As you'll see, we have a very full business agenda to deal with on items ranging from town centre living funds to registration of marriages. Okay, just as let everybody know what's happening, I intend to move item 17 to the end of the agenda. That will allow us to distribute an aid memoir about that can be read over the lunch break. So we'll have a short lunch recess, give you a chance to read the aid memoir rather than sit and listen to me what's actually happening. Okay, so we'll move on then. SEDERUNT apologies, Claire?
Thank you, Chair. I've got apologies from Councillor Blake. I've been advised that Councillor Tate will be in later and Councillor Marshall's not present.
Councillor Marshall's apologies. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The next item is Gillian Ross.
Yeah. Okay, any declarations of interest? John?
Thank you, Chair. As the owner of Town Centre property, I declare an interest in agenda item 14 and will leave the room for that item.
Thank you. Anybody else? Andy?
Chair, I've got the same predicament as John there.
Thank you. Can we move on then to the minute of the meeting of the 19th of March? Yeah. John, do you want to move it? I'll second that. Okay. Any objection? No. Fine. That's it. Approved. We'll move on now to item 4, the Community's Revenue Budget. OUTTURN report by the Director provides members with an overview of the end-of-year financial performance against budget for communities for 2018-19. Pleasing to note the work that has been undertaken by the management team to ensure that we have delivered services within budget, whilst returning a small underspend. It is also important to recognise that in the last financial year, the service has also delivered savings of 1.1 million. This financial position reflects very well on the management and staff who have clearly worked tirelessly to achieve this position. And I've got Gillian Ross here to ask any questions. Gillian, have you anything to add to this?
No, nothing to add.
Jane?
I just want to move recommendations and commend the officers for the effort made. It's been successful.
Thank you. Anyone else? Somebody happy to second Jane? Okay. Their hand for wanting to second it. In that case, we'll move straight to the recommendations, as Jane's saying. So we're agreeing to note the final OUTTURN position, note the full delivery of the agreed savings, note the utilisation of policy development allocations, and agree to the transfer of 208,000 to service reserves to support the identified initiatives and commitments. All right, so it's agreed. Thank you very much. Move on to item 5, Community Director's end-of-year assessment of Community's business plan. The report highlights the services delivering the projects and indicators within the business plan. As well as this, the Communities Director is leading on new ways of working with communities which reflect our Council's ambition to be at the forefront of implementing the principles of community empowerment. It is clear from the performance information that steady progress is being made. Before opening up the item for member debate, I've asked the Director to provide members with an overview of the end-of-year performance report. So, for you, Derek.
Thank you, Chairman. Morning, members. Just very briefly, obviously, Council continues to change and adapt, and this will be the last community's business in this business, given the changes of function and remit. So it would certainly be remiss to sort of do a quick reflection. In overall terms, the results are certainly pleasing. They're certainly due to hard work of officers with the support of elected members and indeed our partners and community organisations. So I don't intend to dwell on any of the detail, more than happy to take questions. What I would highlight, I think, is particularly the culture and ethos that's starting to emerge. On page 58, DG 11, and page 61, DG 20 show continuous improvement. Why I highlight these are because I think they are fundamental to the culture, the values and the behaviours of the staff within communities, and therefore we value the customer. The EMES has been an issue of continuous concern from members. There's still room for improvement, be absolutely assured. However, to get to the point now where we're close to 100% of responding to inquiries within timescales is certainly positive, but certainly not complacent about it. In terms of PDRs, I think we all acknowledge it's an unsettling time for our staff, it's an unsettling time for our communities, and it's a challenging time for senior officers and elected members. So the involvement, the engagement of our staff becomes increasingly important. Therefore, giving staff a voice, as we do, ensuring that PDRs are conducted, but not just conducted, but actually reflect the culture, has been something we've tirelessly worked at, and certainly that's reflected in this report. And in overall terms, members now receive at your request the staff newsletter, which you will see features a whole range of interesting articles, people and personality. So happy to take any specific questions that arise from the report, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just go straight to questions then. Graham, you had your hand up.
Thanks, Chair. Obviously, in the penned agenda item 5 here, on page 55, and the coloured one here, it mentions about the antisocial behaviour strategy, and the current position is 33%. I know some elected members will be seeing a small rise of antisocial behaviour in the wards. I'm just wondering if we can have a fuller update on this, please.
Thanks. Harry, can you pick that up?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, we had anticipated the antisocial behaviour strategy being brought to committee in January of this year. There have been pressures. The strategy has been developed principally through Police Scotland, and the officer involved in that has been on other duties, and I believe has now been taken elsewhere. So that has been reallocated within Police Scotland, and we are receiving commitment that they'll bring it to committee for September.
Okay, Graham. Anyone else? No. In that case, then I might need to go straight to the recommendations. So we've obviously reviewed the overall summary. We've scrutinised the exception reporting, and we're agreeing the proposed amendments to the business plan as set out in Appendix 3. Are you happy with that? Agreed. Thank you very much. Okay, the Community Asset Transfer Annual Report. It highlights the community asset transfer process and the culture of community empowerment is gaining momentum within communities across our region. Particularly pleased that the feedback from community groups detailed in paragraph 3.5 is so positive. The ward working approach is clearly a key factor in helping to ensure community groups have easy access to sound advice and support. I've got Jamie Ferguson and Liz Manson here to take any questions. Can we just go straight to questions? Are we happy with that? Rob?
Thank you, Chairman. Looking at page 97 in the introduction, the second to last paragraph, of course they're not numbered in this, but it talks about the Council's capacity and speedy response can be challenging as the number of cats grow, particularly for legal services and property and architectural services, etc. I think certainly that is a fair reflection of some of the issues that community groups have come up against. I think not just in the kind of preparatory phases of considering whether they wish to make a community asset transfer application, but also, as we've discovered, I think with some of them at the end after it has been agreed. So agreements then taking a while to feed through. While not necessarily an issue for the recommendations, it having been highlighted, I'm wondering how this committee will maybe look at what we do to address that and how that improvement work kind of feeds through over the course of the year.
I'm just asking Derek there if he can take that back to the senior leadership team to actually make sure that we've got synergy across. Got to let Derek come in.
Yeah, I'm more than happy for the officers who are involved to give a view through you, Chairman, but before doing that, certainly welcome Deputy Leader's observations and therefore acknowledge that that is something that we need to improve, and hopefully with the new arrangements in the Council, senior leadership team will certainly look at that issue and ensure that in fact the feedback is acted upon to ensure that we do improve in that area. But through you, Chair, happy for the officers directly involved maybe just to give a comment as well.
I suppose the comment would be that when we first started with the community asset transfer procedure a couple of years back, it was difficult to predict what the uptake from communities would be. The uptake certainly isn't decreasing, it's increasing if anything, and I think it does put pressures, it puts pressures on. You're right that at the beginning of the process and at the end of the process, those are the times when there can be hold-ups to the frustration of community groups who invest a lot of effort and a lot of time in putting their applications together. So resolving that, I think, is important. We do meet with colleagues from property services and from legal to try to resolve this, but I think any push that can be given to further assist our community groups with their aspirations, I think, would be useful.
Okay, Rob, you want back in?
Just to come back in very, very briefly, Chairman, I would appreciate the feedback, and I think that is very helpful indeed. I suppose from my perspective, and I would hope the committees, we, I think, are all collectively agreed that these are things that we wish to support. Community empowerment is important. Community asset transfers are a good thing to do where plans have been, well consulted and carefully drawn up. And I absolutely accept that there are likely to be more of these rather than less, and that's probably to our advantage because it helps us to dispose of assets that we frankly no longer need, I think, in many cases, and contributes to all sorts of other priorities that we have. I'm also aware that clearly this work will only be a small proportion of the day-to-day business of both of these services. And indeed, they'll have lots and lots of work that never really crosses members' desks. We don't necessarily see, but a lot of it's absolutely fundamental. Some of the work legal services do about child protection, for example, we would never necessarily see, but it's always got to take priority. If there are therefore pinch points or issues of capacity which are more profound than the current change in structures and management, if there are resources issues that we need to consider in due course, I think that's potentially something that we would benefit from seeing once that's been bottomed out. I know it won't necessarily be, for the next meeting or even for some time to come, but I think perhaps once there's a clearer view on that, it would be useful for us to know what that is so that we can look at it and consider it, and maybe it's something we want to do something about.
Okay, yeah, that will certainly be taken on board. Yeah, thanks very much, Rob. Okay, anyone else? Davy?
Just a typo error, Chair, on page 110 under Ward 4, Castle Douglas and Crocketford, Hare's House. It is Carmichael, no Carmichael.
Okay, noted. Willie?
Yeah, Chair, it's 3.3.2 in the report. Support a local-based model for running ownership of assets such as village halls, community centres and sport and leisure facilities. And then it goes on to say improve support for community groups such as community development trust. I think Rob refers to pinch points, but there can be tension within the community. There's also within the community, on many community councils, there's age profile. Where people go along to community council not knowing that they're all of a sudden going to look at this and become managers of centres. So it's really just to ask the question, and I know it's in a further report on the agenda today, is whether we're giving enough scope to the communities and not pushing them too hard in terms of that they must take over. And also the other point I would make is that it's not just village halls and leisure centres, there are many other assets within the community. For example, there are car parks, and we've got certain policy on car parks, but they may have other ideas. So it's not just looking at it from a spectrum, or it's just about village halls and leisure centres. It's many other assets that we hold as a council that the community may want to develop. So it's just the question of scope, so that we're not pushing people in under this, well, you either take it over or it's going to close.
Jamie?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think in Dumfries and Galloway, something I've discovered, people talk about social media and they talk about news and all the rest of it, but one of the greatest things in D&G is word of mouth and permissions actually to do things. What we are starting to do now, and we had some of it happening yesterday at a thing we were at, is for groups in Dumfries and Galloway that have been through the community asset transfer process, and increasingly we have a number of the groups that have experience of not only one community asset transfer, but more than that. And by doing that, they gain experience. They gain practical experience of what it's like to actually go through community asset transfer. And they give us feedback. But more importantly than that, some of them are starting to offer to talk to other groups about their community asset transfer and how they did it. And what interests me, to answer your question, is that when you get a form of community asset transfer that comes straight from community, it's not actually at its best, it's not about buildings and it's not about land. What it's about is community aspirations. It's about the community trying to do something for itself. And then identifying that building would actually help us with that. Whether it's tourism, social enterprise, caring for elderly people, vulnerable people, whatever it happens to be, people in poverty, the building is a secondary thing and the land is a secondary thing. So I can only agree with you that, at its best, when you push things at people, what happens is they push back generally, and pushing things is never a great idea. But when it comes from the bottom up, when it comes from, community development values, I think that's when it works at its very best.
Thank you. Well, that's actually a really good question, because it amplifies that recommendation 3 of this, how do you measure social value? I think you're absolutely right. Have we any more questions on this? Are we moving to? Okay, then we'll move to recommendations. Obviously, we've noted the background in relation to the Community Asset Transfer Annual Report, including the high satisfaction levels within the Council, support provided, expressed by community groups involved in community asset transfers. 2 is comment on and agree the draft Community Asset Transfer Annual Report for 18-19, which is detailed in the appendix. And then 3, endorse the next steps, which include measuring social value. And I think that's where your message, Jamie, is not only the good messages, but also where things haven't gone quite right, needs to be shared as well. It's not just a good news story all the time, because people need to know exactly what they're taking on. I think it would be fair. Okay, so we all happy with all these? Yep, happy to agree. Thank you very much. Okay, Willie, sorry you were a wee bit late. I'm moving one of the items to the end of the agenda, because there's something to circulate at lunchtime for you to read beforehand. It's the asset transfer one. It's item 17, so we've got to take that last. Okay, there's a good reason for it, you'll see. Okay.
I'd rather you took it than
move on to item 7, the Dumfries and Galloway Council participation requests. Our Council has a clear strategy and procedure for dealing with participation requests. This annual report indicates the culture and ethos we have embraced to ensure local people are actively engaged in local decision making. Again, I've got Jamie and Liz here to answer any questions. We did charge them with a 0 return, and you seem to have delivered that. Have you anything to add to your report, Jamie?
No, just that we've achieved the 0 return. But there may be an exception report coming up next year, because we have some groups who proactively want to work with the councils and development trusts who have ideas for how they could work to deliver some of the things that currently the council's delivering. And because they're quite complex, I think they're liable to put those into a participation request and put to us. So next year, there may be an exception report. Cause,
Right, okay, have we any questions? It's a historical thing anyway, just a report on what's happened over the last year. No. In that case then we'll go to recommendations. Note the background in relation to the Council's participation request annual reports, and 2, comment on and agree the participation request annual report for 2018-19, which is the appendix. Okay, we happy with that? Thank you. Item 8 is the Dumfries and Galloway Council Participatory Budget and Update Report. Report presents members with an update on participatory budgeting, or PB, including the outcomes and lessons from the Council's third PB exercise and an outline of developments across Scotland in PB which are informing the approach towards mainstreaming PB across our Council. Again, I've got Liz is here, but we call him Freeman, to answer any questions on the report. Have you any you want to add to the report? Are we ready to go straight to questions?
Perhaps we could just highlight for you on page 127, there's just a wee numerical correction to make, that in the online voting for stewardship, the number should be 84. It's correct in the report itself in page 140, but there's just that wee typo, I'm afraid, in page 127.
Thank God it wasn't in the allocation of money. Then we might have had a real stushy. Have we any questions on this? Willie?
Really wasn't it, but not so much a question, and Colin and I have spoken, and it's a developmental issue, and we spoke when we held the participatory budget process and the groups coming together in Castle Kennedy, for instance, and they were all there, and what was of interest was just how much common interest they had, and how, still people missed out on that in terms of the process, the voting process and so forth. And if we could in some way, I don't know what the answer is, I'm looking at Colin here, in terms of that we try to deliver to as many of the groups, because they are all important, and I realise people do prioritise by a voting system, but maybe in that, if we learned anything from how do we get to as many groups as possible, so that someone doesn't feel, God, I just missed out on that by 5 votes or 5 scoring points or whatever. If there's a system that's being looked at and how we come up with that, because from that I think they are starting to work together, and that's the point I would like to see.
Colin?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think the Councillor brings up a really important point. A lot of the feedback, particularly from the Wigton event, was that all the projects in the room were worthy projects, and they felt that they should get something from the process. So it's very much something that we'll feed into the evaluation and look at next year. But also, and again particular to the Wigton process, there are other benefits from putting people in the same room. For example, there are now 5 of those 13 groups have proactively got together and looking at collaboratively working out with the PB work. So there are lots of things to be gained from the process, but there's also a lot that we can still look at.
Thanks, Colin. Jim?
Thanks, Chair. General comments, I think it's been a great success this year, hugely improved. One observation I would make, which is sort of selfish maybe, is that the ward, my ward, the venue we used was in Thornhill, which is probably the wealthiest village in the whole of the ward. And I thought maybe we should have gone nearer where the most likely take-up of these budgets are. But as I say, it is in the centre, so there's no question about that. It's the same distance for everyone. But I feel that maybe the wealthiest community, and they've got the opportunity to have internet access, motor vehicles, where other areas maybe don't have so much. But generally, I think it was a very good exercise this year, and well done.
I can answer for you, Colin. It was in Thornhill because there was no applications from Thornhill. And that was a feedback for the year before, where people thought it was unfair to have the voting in areas where there was a number of applications. So we purposely went to Thornhill just for that very reason. Okay, somewhere in the middle. So it didn't have to travel too far for the magic word Sanker, right? So, any other questions? Jane?
I was just going to say to the officer that you know the thing that strikes, I think, everybody reading this is the take up from 3 localities, areas, seems to be rather better than the one in the Stewardship. And I was really going to ask officers what they think about this and what they plan to do about it, because at the moment it's not actually really working in the Stewardship, I would suggest.
Absolutely. Colin?
Thank you, Chair. Yep, I agree with Councillor that something happened or didn't happen in the Stewardship area, and I think not to preempt anything else that's on the agenda today, but I think it will be something for the next steering group to look at, and in particular, I think the steering group is looking to draw its members from all 4 geographic areas, so we can have that local intelligence, so we can design a process that captures as many people as possible from each of the 4 areas. So it's something that we will definitely look at and improve upon.
Thanks, Colin. Anyone else? One thing, I'd be remiss of me not to actually say something here about the steering group and the volunteers. I think it's absolutely a fantastic piece of work. Their engagement, their commitment and everything else is really first class, and I think through Derek and you and Liz, if we can thank them again for their contributions. I think that would be fair and reasonable.
Yep.
Okay, anything else? No. In that case, we'll go to the recommendations. Note the progress of in implementing the improvements in the delivery of PB, drawn from the evaluation of the first and second PB exercises. To address the findings of the mapping project and the community conversations on street scene. That's the first bit. 2, consider the feedback and agree the recommendations from the evaluation of the third PB exercise. That's Appendix 1. And 3, recognise the continued and significant contribution made by the volunteers on the steering group in designing and delivering our Council's third participative budget exercise. And then 4, note the conclusion of the Community Choices funded activity. 5, note the future developments in paragraph 3.7. 6, agree the new definition of PB at 3.7.2, and 7, note examples of PB activity from across Scotland. That's Appendix 2. Can somebody drop a letter for me to write to the individuals concerned, and like we did last year? Because I know they valued it, because every single one came back to me and said thank you. So it's a small token, but it's I think the way we should do it. Okay, thank you. Okay, tackling poverty in Dumfries and Galloway. Report requires members to review the end-of-year performance of the Anti-Poverty Strategy Action Plan and agree additions to the action plan. Our Council is committed to protecting our most vulnerable people, and this report highlights the work underway to tackle the causes and effects of inequality and poverty. I've got Harry Hay and Wendy Jessen here to answer any questions. Harry, is there anything to add, or Wendy, anything to add to this? No, just go straight to questions. Okay. Jim?
One an observation, Chair, maybe other a question. On 3.6, we are funding, as I understand it, membership for the Fair Share project. Is that existing or just new applicants? And the other thing is, I've raised this constantly, and so it's not a new thing. On 3.3.1, where credit union development of 20k, the most deprived area, one of them according to the current SIMDs, doesn't have credit union in that location, and I've always been anxious to see that expanded to try and address issues in that local community. So I would hope that there will be an attempt to ensure that credit union does go to where it's one of the places it's most needed, and just a response as to whether or no memberships for new or existing Fair Share applicants.
Just before you answer, can I maybe change that and say to other areas, not just, because there are other areas I would suggest would be interested in doing it. So
absolutely,
I know your question is a very specific one, but I'm just asking them if they could widen the answer to, what can we do to promote them in the wider area?
I'm content with that, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor, for your inquiry. In relation to the first one on 3.6, it would be for new organisations and also for existing organisations, so it would help them with their annual fee on an annual basis and also attract more groups to the Fair Share project. And in relation to your second query, we've already had discussions with the Credit Union Development Officer about diversifying up into the Upper Nithsdale area, and he's been in touch with the secondary school and one of the primary schools to develop school saving schemes as well. So that's on the work programme for 2019-20.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Wendy.
Okay with that. Willie?
Yeah, Chair, you get in before me, but Wendy and I had a discussion before the meeting actually started, and it's how we roll out the fair share. We've got it in areas, but I think it's right and proper, the value that we get in the areas where we are participating with fair share is tremendous, and we really need to try and roll that out to other areas where it's equally facing poverty or people facing poverty. But it's really, my question is to 3.31 and 2 and 3 actually, and it's really tackling poverty in child poverty and how we can work collaboratively, and no doubt it is, but the net effect isn't being experienced in terms of how we get children on school holidays to direct them, refer them, point them, whatever, to where we've got cafes that do work with Fair Share and provide a free meal, and how we can try and get more kids during school holidays to use the cafes like Kate's Kitchen, the Fed Up Cafe in Stranraer, is to try and get more and more kids in so that we know they're being fed, because it's clear here we've got an increase in free school clothing grants, so there is an indication there, and free school meals and holiday putting £200,000 into it. And then on 3.55, there's reference to the grants an increase. What we're finding for media coverage, news items, it's not just people who are on low income that are facing poverty. We've got people who are in employment who also are facing poverty and no meeting their requirements or the housing, the rents and so forth and so on, the mortgages. So it's how do we direct and get more kids using what facilities that we do provide to give free meals during school holidays. If there's a way we can try and find some system in that.
Wendy?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Scobie. In relation to that, the programme for the summer holidays, which has been developed by the education team and also the young people's team, there'll be a lot more media advertising this year, and it'll also be a bigger partnership project with third sector organisations, including the ones you've mentioned, the Fed Up Cafe in Stranraer and Kate's Kitchen. So there'll be a widespread marketing campaign prior to the launch of the project, just so people know where to go, the times, the activities that are on, and more importantly, that every activity is going to be free. So it doesn't matter what the financial circumstances are of the child, they'll be able to come along and attend. But what we're planning to do is, now the project's mainstreamed, that it will be expanded through each holiday programme moving forward. But we can certainly bring more details back to a future report as well.
Okay, Willie. Anyone else? Jane?
Chairman, I think actually I was really interested in 3.7, which is the paragraph saying that 2 of the new members of the Tackling Poverty Reference Group put themselves forward to serve on a national basis. And I think actually it behoves this committee to commend them for having done that, to make the effort, because although they weren't successful, that's actually, in my view, irrelevant. It's the fact that they tried. So I really do applaud that.
Harry?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. No, I think it's a very valid point. And one of the positive side effects we've found of the reference group is that in terms of self-worth, confidence, etc., and the journey some of these individuals have went through, it's really been fantastic. And I think it's exactly the type of thing we should try and encourage. But certainly, no, we'll make sure that the members are aware of that.
Okay, thanks, Jane. Anyone else? No. In that case, then I'll move on to the recommendations. One, we've been asked to review the overall summary of the end of year performance, which we've done. Set in Appendix 1. Two was to note the key highlights and case studies in Appendix 2. And then 3, agree to include the 2 new additional projects designed to tackle food insecurity in the Anti-Poverty Strategy Action Plan, which is paragraph 3.6. Happy to agree? Great, thank you very much. Move on to item 10. That's involving communities and tackling poverty through participatory budgeting for the financial year 2019-2020. Report asks members to agree the outline criteria for allocating the tackling poverty budget for 2019-20 through PB, as well as the outlined timeline for the delivery of the process. And again, Harry and Wendy are here to take any questions. Is there anything you'd like to add, either of you? Right. Okay, thanks. So I'm happy to go straight to questions. Willie?
Yeah, Chairman, you've spoken of it this morning on a number of the reports, and it's that social value, whether indeed we are targeting the areas of most deprivation in terms of the whole process. You know, if we could introduce that, you know, while the exercise was good in Castle Kennedy that I've just referred to, or earlier referred to, I would like to see more coming out in terms of the applicants or the applications we receive and that social value coming through, that we are getting to the people most in need.
Yeah, it's a process, isn't it? I mean, I don't know, Wendy, have you anything to add to that? We're getting there, Willie. It's just a case, it's a slow journey. Yeah. No, fine. Anyone else? No. We'll go to recommendations. So, this is the, we're asked to agree the outline criteria for the 2019 tackling poverty budget allocation. 2, agree the membership and arrangements of the steering group. And 3, agree the outline timeline for the delivery of the PB exercise for tackling poverty budget 2019-20, which is set at paragraph 3.11. Happy with that? Agree? Thank you very much. Okay, we move on to item 11, the anti-poverty grant funding for area committees. Report by the Head of Neighbourhood Services. Report seeks members' agreement to the allocation formula for the tackling poverty budget for the area committees. Again, Harry and Wendy are here to answer any questions. Have you anything to add to this report? Thanks. We'll go straight to questions. Jim?
Chair, it's just a daft question. On page 186, 3610, where we make observation what other councils do, West Lothian Council recently moved on to allocating funding through identifying where gaps are in the delivery of service and then focusing on emerging themes such as food insecurity. What's food insecurity?
Being hungry.
Well, I understand that. Is that what it means? I thought we used to use plain English. I thought that was the whole plan of these papers, so if folk in the public domain can understand it.
Well,
I can't write and read anyway, so it's not a big problem for me, but for folk that can, plain English would be helpful.
I think it's, we're getting caught up in some of the jargon and the wider scene here, I think. But it's fair enough. Any other questions? No? In that case, then we'll go to recommendations, and that is, we're asked to note the local criteria which have been agreed by the area committees, and 2, agree the area committee anti-poverty grant funding 1920 allocation formula set at paragraph 3.6.8 to 3.6.11 and the appendix. Okay, thanks very much. We'll now move on to item 12. I know, registration of marriages, trends in income, report by Head of Neighbourhood Services. I think I did my best to put folk off coming to Gretna Green last night on the telly. But No, I think it was actually a very good piece by Border Television last night about this. Reports a timely reminder that Dumfries and Galloway, particularly Gretna, have a significant market share of the weddings taking place in Scotland. The report provides members with detail on the current situation regarding trends developing in the registration service, both locally and nationally, along with the potential impact on the projected registration income for Dumfries and Galloway Council. I've got Harry and Elaine here to answer any questions. Have you any to add to the report? Any questions? Come on, where's the romantics? Must be somebody. Is there a staff discount we're asking? No, absolutely not. No. Must you win it? No. Okay. We're doing well here, boys. We're up. I'm 12. I don't know if it's the thought of having the sandwiches early as getting this through. Okay, so let's move to recommendations if nobody else wants to come in. So we're asked to note the current national and local trends in marriage and the direct link to registration income. And 2, the range of service improvements and positive impact on the customer experience. I think it would actually be wrong here. It's not one of the formal things, but there's also a huge contribution to the local economy in Dumfries and Galloway. And of course, that's not for this committee, it's for another committee to report on, but I think we should recognise that fact as well. Okay, so thanks very much. Thank you. Let's move on to item 13, the Energy Efficient Scotland Area-Based Scheme for 1920 report. I ask members to agree the Energy Efficient Scotland Area-Based Scheme for 1920 projects for Dumfries and Galloway. We've got Jamie Little and Jim O'Neill here to take any questions. Have you anything to add to the report, gentlemen? No, thank you. So I'm happy to go straight to questions. Jim?
It's not a question, it's an observation. I make it every year, and I should declare an interest because it would involve me, but currently this scheme only covers a council tax band A, B and C. And lots of folk, old folk, inherit or continue to live in properties that are in need of this energy efficiency installations and don't qualify through the government scheme. And I think I've asked before if we couldn't look at approaching the Scottish Government or whatever agency funds this to see if other tax bands, council tax bands could be included, because there is no doubt that people in Dumfries and Galloway in these properties in some instances will most definitely suffer from fuel poverty.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, the Scottish Government guidance is that we target properties in bands A to C for these projects. The reason being that tends to be the prevalence of fuel poverty is the scoping exercise has identified that within Dumfries and Galloway there still is a significant number of properties in council tax bands A to C that would benefit from this scheme. But by working in partnership with the Energy Agency, what we also do is look to utilise other funding streams to help all people in the region who are living in fuel poverty. There are a number of national schemes that people can be eligible for, and by working with the Energy Agency, who also operate the Home Energy Scotland hotline, they're able to identify whenever somebody calls any potential projects or funding that person would be eligible for.
Okay, thanks. Jim, you want to come back in?
Aye, that's the same explanation I get every year, but that doesn't alter the fact that I think we should be approaching the Scottish Government to see if this particular scheme, which is very popular and well done, well sorted and beneficial, couldn't it be offered to other, I know because it's Scottish Government guidelines, I think, or Scottish Government policy, but there's nothing to say you can't approach the Government to see if they'll change that policy. That's the point I'm making. Know where else folk can go for assistance.
I can actually answer that, because if members were minded, I could actually write to the Housing Minister and ask him if it's due for review. Because my understanding is it's been this for some considerable time, certainly since before 2007. So it's been consecutive. Different types of Scottish Government have actually applied this criteria. So I'd be happy to write to ask when they're intending to review the criteria for this, if members were like-minded. Okay?
That'd be great, Chair. Aye.
Can one of you guys write a letter for me? Thanks, and I'll sign it. Hey, Willie, are you want to sign it, Willie?
Do you want me to? Yeah, Chair, it's maybe on the back of that, and I'm looking at 3.1, and Jim and I and Jamie have looked at this, and there's reference to Stranraer in 3.6.2, and Jamie and I have been working on a property, a private sector property that's got low or no cavity with a concrete build of the time. But it's more my question on 3.1 and the work that Jim and I have done in the past, and it's to the social rented sector, where many face dampness problems, fuel poverty, and so forth, and really how we work with the social landlords at tackling this fuel poverty in social housing, where, you know, 9 times out of 10 it comes back, they do their survey and it comes back it's all the tenants' fault. They don't have their house to 21 degrees, and then they don't open their windows to create the circulation, but yet through the winter they do suffer huge dampness problems, and they suffer from fuel poverty. It's how we tackle this issue effectively and collaboratively with the social landlords.
Yep, thanks, Chair. The landlord with the largest amount of stock of that nature, the type being described by Councillor Scobie, is DGHP, and as members will be aware, they're going through a period of potentially significant change. They're currently looking to engage a new strategic partner for the organisation, and it's anticipated that whoever that new partner may be, they will bring significant amounts of money into the region for investment in affordable housing, and they'll be considering, for example, new phases of regeneration going forward. So there would be a kind of renewed strategic approach to the stock condition that they own, and I think that their interim chief executive, Mr. Alex Maguire, has met with members over in Stranraer to discuss that particular issue and is aware of the need for change in that particular location.
Okay, well, can I ask you a question? Sorry, Rob, yeah, first.
Just on that exact point that Councillor Scobie raised, and certainly in the past, that is a response that I've encountered in relation to constituent inquiries, where there was, I'm certainly not a technical person at all, quite clearly an issue, but the initial response was that the house is not being ventilated or heated appropriately by the tenant, even when the tenant could evidence exactly what they were doing according to the instructions they'd been given by representatives of the landlord. An immensely frustrating situation for them to be in, and one that took a good deal of pushing and shoving to be properly addressed. So I kind of will follow that with interest and look forward to a bit of improvement in that, because I'm not really sure it's an appropriate way of dealing with the issue. Certainly not as it has been in the past.
Yeah, it's just the old moist heat cooking situation, isn't it? Creating dampness in the houses. Can I ask, it's maybe not your area, Jim or Jamie, how do people change from a band D to a band C? How does the property, is there a mechanism for them being downgraded to band C? If you've not got an answer, we can get it and then circulate it around to the members. I think, because it's a valid point, because if we're going to let band D properties deteriorate, when do they become band C? And it's something I'm not sure about, I've never had dealings with. It'd be really interesting if we can get some information on that so that we're better sighted. Yep.
I've got it. It's the assessor's office that determines it, and it's on the footprint of the property.
Jim, I know it's the assessor's office, but we need to know the criteria, how you manage to do it. That's the point I'm getting at. It's not who does it, I know who does it. It's how do they arrive at dropping a band from D to C. And that's a bit of information I'm thinking here is currently the Strategic Housing Authority or that remit in this committee. We should know that, right? Because it's got a major impact on how money is spent in the region. So If you, rather than give us an answer, can you find out for us and share it with us, Jamie?
Just on the point, obviously, there around the council tax banding, you obviously agreed to send a letter to the Housing Minister. The criteria is reviewed on an annual basis, so there will be the opportunity for that to be put forward. I think on the council tax banding, obviously defer to council tax professionals on that one, but aware that there is a formal process that people can go through to request that their houses are rebanded. But the actual detail of that would defer to council tax professionals.
John?
Thank you, Chair. Looking at page 200, 3.32, just over 10% of people eligible for help with their homes were for privately rented. If I had, say, an inquiry from somebody who lived in a poorly insulated farm cottage, would the tenant make application, or would they have to go through the farmer or the owner of the property to make application?
Thanks, Chair. The tenant or the landlord can make application. Obviously, at the time of works, there would need to be agreement from the landlord as it's their property, but either the tenant or the landlord can make application and initial inquiry.
Thank you. Matthew?
There we go. Just a curious question about the monies awarded to Dumfries and Galloway Council. Is there ongoing costs once applications have been received, they've been implemented, and then year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc.? Do you have departmental costs, or is the following year's grant money used for any kind of maintenance, checks, things like that? Or once it's spent, and we don't go back to the properties in question?
There's an element of the funding that is used for monitoring the benefits of actually installing the insulation, and that can be around moisture levels in the properties, as we already alluded to on a previous question. Obviously, the idea of the installation of the insulation is to improve the properties, reduce the actual cost of the fuel bills for people, and there is ongoing monitoring. In the report, we mentioned the work that the Energy Agency have carried out with the NHS, and that's also looking at the health improvements that people have experienced as a result of having insulation installed in their properties.
Does that come out of that Scottish Government awarded money? Yeah. And yeah, I'd just like to know that. I think it's actually a very good use of funds. Thank you.
Thanks. Jim?
Just a throwaway line, Chair. The ABCD banding is set on rateable value, and we were supposed to review them every 5 years, and I'm sure it's more than 10 years since that's been done. So you maybe not got an up-to-date picture on that either. Whether or not that'll be a good thing or a bad thing, depending upon what the outcome might be, is a different thing, but we might want to incorporate that into whatever mechanism we do to consider how we decide band A, B, C and D, etc. would be useful.
I think, well, all that can be included in a letter to the Housing Minister and asking about the review. And I'll share that letter with members of the committee when it goes away. Okay, so I think that is probably the best way for us to take it forward, because we're not in a position to do it ourselves. It's with our control. So, have we any more questions? In that case, then we'll go to the recommendations. One was to note the OUTTURN position of the 17-18 Home Energy Efficiency Programme for Scotland. And that was the area-based scheme, which is now at paragraph 3.3. And 2 was note the funding allocation of 1.938.27 million for the Dumfries and Galloway Council Energy Efficient Scotland area-based scheme in 2019-20, that's paragraph 3.4. And 3, agree the projects for the Dumfries and Galloway Council Energy Efficient Scotland area-based scheme 2019-20 as paragraph 3.5. Can you put in the letter something, can they shorten the name of the scheme, please? Right? Because, yeah, okay, so we're happy to note all that and agree. Okay, thank you. Town Centre Living Fund, a report by the Neighbourhood Services. Again, as members will be aware, as part of this year's budget setting process, the Council agreed to allocate £1 million to deliver the Town Centre Living Fund. The report seeks members' agreement to the revised criteria for applications for funding from the Council's Town Centre Living Fund. Proposed changes to the criteria very much reflect the feedback and experience from the fund's application in the previous 2 years. We're going to take that later. No, sorry. Sorry, no, I'm lost there. So, again, we've got Jamie and Jim to answer questions on it. Have we anything you want to add to the report, gentlemen? No? Jane?
Yes, it's the below tolerable standards grants and the allocation of monies. I mean, members will be aware that they have this budget because it comes from second homes. And second homes are almost exclusively in rural areas, and with all the pluses and minuses that second homes actually create in those areas. And it's quite obvious that there is a major demand for doing up houses that become below tolerable standards in rural areas. And since that's where the money comes from, Chairman, I'm wondering about the split and allocation. We seem to be getting £200,000 to tackle properties across the region, and there is clearly demand from rural areas. Should we actually be aiming to make certain that those properties which are below tolerable standards in rural areas should actually receive a little bit more consideration, because that is where the money is coming from?
I would suggest maybe it's baby steps, Jane, because this is a morph from the original Dumfries Town Centre. Then we included the larger towns in the LDP, and I think this is a kind of natural progression, and this is for 1 year only. No, this fund. So we're
accepted, Chairman. So, would it be fair to put it in as something we might consider next year? I understand it's a 1 year only programme, but I think it's something which we should consider.
Well, yeah, if we can consider it, yes, absolutely. But of course, you could put your own budget in as well. But with that, or even come to us with an amendment for that as we go through that budget setting process. John, did you want in? No.
It's in the name. If we've got to set up a separate fund, a rural fund, it would need to be a separate fund, because this was actually set up as a town centre living fund. So, as I say, I have no problem with doing it, but as I say, it shouldn't come out of this fund, even though, as you say, the majority of them are rural properties. But as I say, I have no problem with it coming another fund or something that are revising it. But as I say, at the present moment, this is a town centre living fund, and it's only for a year. So, as I say, that's the way it is at present.
Okay, Rob.
Thank you, Chairman. Clearly, I think we'd look forward to constructive discussions with Councillor Maitland in the run-up to the budget, as we would with all other groups. What I think I wanted to go back to, first point is that I definitely welcome the change in the criteria, which I think actually reflects what we were trying to achieve in terms of the empty properties. We had talked about empty homes, and I think perhaps we felt that that just covered it. And perhaps as members we hadn't picked up on the distinction between what was an empty home from the 1940s, which has been actually commercial property ever since, and was thereby perhaps accidentally and unintentionally not covered by the criteria that we'd set. I think changing that is really beneficial. It will be very interesting to see what the uptake of that is, because I think that we all had in mind that what we wished to do was facilitate the conversion of what has become empty, unused space, which is notionally commercial, but in fact serves no useful purpose at all, back into habitable space, which was full of people who would then spend money in the town centre and help to regenerate it. So I look forward to seeing how that actually pans out in due course, because I think that was what we were really driving at with this fund all along. I really welcome that. I think it's a very useful change. I take on board exactly the points which are being made about equity and fairness across the region. I suspect that perhaps the way that we should approach this is by looking in the round at the product of the Second Homes Council Tax Fund, how much that is bringing in, and what we have to work with in the future. I think we would wish to continue with a town centre living fund. There is a commitment to that effect, but I also accept that we need to look at addressing the issue of properties which are below tolerable standard right across the region, I think that it's something we will therefore have to consider in terms of a fund for one and a fund for the other, and we will naturally therefore need to work out how we're going to finance those, depending on how much money we're getting from Second Homes Council tax income, and what else we might have to consider in order to make that up, potentially, to a level where we actually have enough to go round. Bearing in mind that one of the points about the additional levy on empty homes, Second Homes is wrong, I beg your pardon, on empty homes, was actually to bring them back into use. So it was always possible that that money was going to decrease over time. All of that said, I think we should go with the recommendations that we have here. I think that there are some good changes in those. We need to see how they bed in, and we thereafter need to look at what we do with our discrete and separate town centre living fund, and what we also do for properties which are below tolerable standard out with our town centres. There is clearly a need there, and I think perhaps a report that maybe gives us an idea of what the relative numbers are and what therefore the demand on these funds might be respectively would be very helpful. That's, I think, all for the future, but we can work it up. I think for the moment, this is a sensible way forward, but we certainly, I think, need to keep an eye on it and review it. I guess this time next year, Chairman.
Okay, first time speaker, first Adam, and then John, yeah.
Thanks, yeah. I think probably what we all need to do is take a step back, and I know that there's going to be a review, but I remember we changed the criteria because of a particular application in my ward, which I was absolutely delighted went through. I'll be even more delighted and probably do somersaults when houses are built. But we changed the criteria because of people who weren't happy with that, and I think that the feeling seems to be that we'll probably end up changing the criteria again. I think to be fair to Councillor Maitland, I think she raises an issue that she has raised in the past, which is absolutely fair and absolutely right. Although I do agree with John, it is the town centre living fund. We changed the criteria to be the town centre living fund, and we went through all that, and we're not about to change it again. So I think probably what needs to happen is we need to actually stand back and say, what do we want, and what type of strategies we want to have, because I think this is the only thing that in the short time I've been elected, we've changed it a couple of times and we're not about changing it again. So I think as every elected member, we actually need to decide what do we want, and we actually need to have that discussion rather than every single time I was coming to discuss the town centre living fund and getting all these things I think people want to see. We do need to sort of take that step back and actually decide what we want.
John?
Things been said between Rob and Rod and Adam. This thing I'd like to ask, how many properties in the town centres have actually been updated, been made habitable with the money from this fund line? How many properties have actually been updated?
The works to properties are ongoing. From the 2018-19 fund, there was around 50 to 60 properties who have been allocated funding within the town centres, and that's a mixture of the empty homes funding and the below tolerable standard funding. There's also been the allocations that have been made for the wider projects that we describe as town centre sites, which have brought properties back into use, and that includes properties in Friars, Vanoa, 2 derelict properties were brought back into use as housing, and allocation of funding to properties on Castle Street in the town as well. But also the funding has been used to enable larger strategic housing investment plan projects to go forward, including at Cars Billington site in Annan, where 27 affordable houses have been will be delivered. I think the target date for completion there is within this financial year. So the allocations are not just bringing empty homes and below tolerable standard properties up to condition, but they're also enabling development of larger scale projects, which is levering in additional funding as well.
Thanks. I'm actually, Jim, did you want in? Sorry.
Just an observation, Chair, on 342 halfway down, where it talks about eligibility for this element of the fund will be aimed at homes that are currently empty in need of refurbishment. I'd be happy to vacate mine for a year if I could get 20 grand after that to tidy it up. And we'll have to be more specific than just a need of refurbishment, because you could have creative purchasers that buy a place, sit in it for a year, and then qualify for up to £20,000 for refurbishment. And I would want to see this money used for the best possible purpose. and not just somebody that's creatively working the system, for wanting better language.
Seeking in this report that members agree that properties are empty for a period of a year. There's multiple reasons why properties can become empty, and it can be elements of structural issues, it can be elements of energy efficiency. Obviously, working in the private rented sector, there's certain standards that properties are expected to achieve. There can, as I say, there's a lot of physical works that need to be carried out to properties. And what felt was, as it was a town centre living fund, it was very important that, given that a lot of these properties are older and much more expensive to regenerate and to bring back into use, that a proportion of funding was available of £20,000. This was from learning from previous allocations that have been made and work that we've done on empty homes in the past.
Thank you. I'm just thinking here, Jane's quite right, there is an unfairness in the current system, but we need to be careful and not dilute the message about the town centres, you know. So, and I think absolutely, and the real question for me here, and I think Rob touched on it, is actually the use of the fund and how it's used, and that's the bit that needs to be reviewed, because the allocation, I'm sure at budget setting time will raise its head again. We're faced with what we've got here today. Rob's already moved that we go with the recommendations. Is there? Sorry, Willie.
Yeah, Chairman, I hear what Jane's saying about the countryside, but if you live in the edge of Stranraer, you may as well, be there. You may be in Mars or wherever, but I'm just wondering in terms of Jamie, if Jamie could answer in 3.2 as to the definition of town centre and whether indeed there is enough latitude within that to go beyond what the local development plan has defined as the town centre, which does allow, because it's a thorny and vexed question that continually comes up in Stranraer in terms of the derelict properties. And the one that comes to mind is the repeater station at the edge of Stranraer, just as you come in on the 77. And it would, the people of Stranraer would dearly love for that to be brought back in and used for whatever housing would be an ideal situation there. So, I'm just wondering, Jimmy, if there's enough latitude within that it gives you that opportunity in looking at derelict property and bringing those back.
Yeah, I'll let Jamie in a minute, but I'm just thinking, there's maps available, isn't there, to what areas are. Jamie, can you answer? Yeah.
Members previously agreed to set the definition of the town centres as is set in the local development plan for town centres, but recognising that that's not a perfect fit in terms of housing. It's predominantly defined as a retail centre. We also asked members to agree to receive reports back to committee where properties needed investment or sites needed investment that also supported town centre regeneration objectives. The case that Councillor Wilson raised before around Park Place, that is a site that is out with the defined town centre in Lockerbie. However, its clear location and walking distance to the town centre would indicate that would support town centre regeneration by increasing the footfall in that area as well. So there is scope within the town centre living fund to consider properties that lie out with the defined town centres. What we try and do is assess where they will also contribute to wider regeneration objectives for the council.
Okay, thanks, Jamie. Okay, now we've got a proposal for Rob to go with the recommendations. Is there anybody objecting to that? No? Is that carried unanimously? Thank you. Agreed. Thank you. Thanks very much, gentlemen. Homeless Service Rapid Rehousing Transition Plan Approval and Service Update. All right, yeah, and John Young, yeah. Just a minute, we'll wait for the two members to come back. Okay, sorry, we're ready to move on. Item 15, the Rapid Rehousing Transition Plan. It's another mouthful, isn't it? Members are aware that back in January this year, members agreed the draft Rapid Rehousing Transition Plan, which had been submitted to Scottish Government on the 27th of December. Within the final plan and costings being submitted, with the final plan and costings being submitted on the 30th of April, this report provides members with an update on the progress made in the homeless service in 1819. And we've got Lorna Campbell here to take any questions. Lorna, have you anything you want to add to this? Oh, thank you. So, no questions? Jane?
Well, as you and I had a brief conversation slightly earlier about the barriers, Chairman, to making this homelessness service as seamless as possible across the strategic partnership concerned with the integration joint board and the work that has been done to try and persuade everybody that housing is right across the piece. Everybody's got a responsibility for it. And as I was reading it, Chairman, I came across the barriers to it, and a lot is about, talking about the data protection, talking about systems not talking to each other, talking about people not really understanding each other's role, and really in terms of the action plan going forward. And I accept this is historic. I mean, I accept this is what we're doing. Can we have some sort of thought as we roll forward as to how we are going to share data across the piece? Because we're doing a bit of work, obviously, with health and social care, but this is also part of health and social care, and it needs to tie in with the data protection work that is going on between the council and the health service.
Lorna, I'll let you in. Yeah, but I'll come and have a comment, obviously.
Thanks, Chair. And certainly, obviously, Council and partners are well aware of data sharing, especially since introduction of GDPR last year. It's fair to say in some of the protocols we've introduced so far, we very much are aware of making sure that there's a signed mandate from service users that we can share information. So things like our prison discharge protocol, our hospital discharge protocol, we'll have that signed with our partners to ensure that we can share that data across services. So it's something that we are very conscious of, obviously for, as you say, integrated joint board as well as council services. So where possible, we've actually got data sharing agreements in place to ensure that we can share that data across when it's certainly for that person's benefit or safety and security. We ensure that that's in place, but it's something that is constantly on the agenda.
Okay, Jane, do you want to come back in?
If I could. So I mean, I suppose I'm saying to the committee and to you that we need to think about whether this is actually working, because we know that there are savings to be made if people don't have to run round looking for the same information which should actually be achievable and gettable at through system sharing, then we should be trying to do that. Now, I know this is going to be a very long process. I'm well aware of that, but unless you start, you never get to the end.
Absolutely. There's the added, it's no difficulty, but obstacle in that this party housing isn't delegated to the IGB, right, currently. But I can say to members that it's part of the review process for looking at what is to be delegated in the future, because everybody realises that housing plays a huge role in the health, social welfare of the people in the region. So it would make sense to have, in some way or other, to join it all together. So to be fair to Lorna, it would be really difficult for her to do too much at this moment in time. But take your point, Jane. Anyone else? No. In that case, then, we'll move on to the recommendations. Just we're asked to agree the content of the final Rapid Rehousing Transition Plan submitted to the Scottish Government on the 30th of April as detailed in the appendix. Have you agreed? Thank you. Thanks very much, Lana. Okay, so we're now on to the item 16, the welfare reform update, universal credit. Report asks members to note the update on the rollout of universal credit, the local impacts and the wider work being undertaken by the welfare team. Paula Doherty is here to take any questions on the report. Paula, have you any update or? No? Okay, thank you. So we'll go straight to questions. Rob?
Happy to move recommendations, Chairman, and welcome the suggested amendment to the DHP policy at 3.5.2. Seems to be perfectly sensible.
Okay, have anybody got anything for the officer in terms of question or clarity? Trying my best not to rush you, but so are we ready to go with the recommendations as proposed by Rob? Agreed? Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Paula. That was short and sweet. Moving on to, say we're missing out 17 just now, going to 18, the capital investment strategy, land asset class capital outturn for 18-19. Report provides members with a final outturn position for the land asset capital programme for 2018-2019, and I've got Karen and Harry here to answer any questions. Have we any updates? No. Thank you. Jane?
I remember asking about the Wigtonshire Wall, and apparently the Wigtonshire Wall, the Wigton Wall, yes, has still not been repaired, despite the fact that we were talking about the Wigton Wall having been damaged by a 4x4, and it was supposed to be repaired. I was given certain assurances that something might happen about that, and apparently it hasn't. So I'm just a little bit surprised not to have seen it in here. So.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor, I can comment on the last report that was presented to members in March. The repair to the wall around the bowling club in Wigton was on the reserve list for the 1920 projects. This is the outturn for 18-19. However, in the appendix, there is a note against the Turf Valley Depot, Glenluce steps to the rear, where that £5,000 allocation has been agreed by the community that they do not want us to sort those steps, and therefore I was requesting that that money could then be transferred into the 1920 to repair the wall in Wigton.
Thank you, Chairman.
Chair, it is not on the agenda, nor do I expect it to, well, I'll withdraw if I expect it to be on the agenda, but we do face a problem in Stranraer to do with the Cairnryan Road sea defence wall. That's currently disputed as to who owns the particular wall between Transport Scotland and the council. And I was just looking yesterday, and the wall is deteriorating badly. And I would like to see a report come back here with this resolved as to the legal position as to who actually did we transfer it when it was transferred as part of the trunk road, and therefore the responsibility of Transport Scotland, or is it still retained by the council as a sea defence wall? I don't expect an answer, but if we could get a report on that, because the wall is deteriorating, and indeed part of it is falling through an accident on one occasion.
I think the first question, Willie, was is that part of the delegations of this committee? Probably EEI. I know. But if it's not our asset, and that's the question mark. Absolutely, get the message. Ever the opportunities, Willie, you've got it in here. This is a historical thing, but so well done for that. I don't think there's much we can actually say other than we can go away and find out what's happening. I'm not committing to a report coming back here until we know it's our delegation, right? So let's find out who the delegation is and then recommend. If it's not us, we can recommend to that committee that they do something about it. If it's ours, then we'll get a report back. How's that? Okay, thank you. Jim?
An observation rather than a question, Chair, but all the long outstanding works, 15, 16, 16, 17 have been completed with the exception of one, which is Morton Cemetery, and I would hope that that will be progressing this year. I do think when things are programmed for a number of years, we should strive at some stage to get them completed. It's everything been done except that one. No asking any questions, just hope that it's dealt with.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Noted. Anybody else? No? In that case, then, we'll go to recommendations. Are we happy to agree the final outturn position for all the projects within the Land Asset Class Capital Programme for 18-19? That's the appendix. And then 2, agree to continue with projects which have been carried forward to 19-20. Again, that's in the detail in the appendix. And then 3, agree to receive an update report to this committee in September in relation to the Land Asset Class Capital Programme for 19-20 as detailed in paragraph 3.11. Yeah, okay. Willie?
Chair, well, I would hope to see it in the recommendation, but at least there is an audit trail that it's in the minute that we will seek, the ascertain who actually has got the delegation.
It's an operational action, Willie. We'll take that forward, and then the officers can converse directly with you on that, and then that'll give you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, folks. Let's move on to item 19, the Public Convenience Review. This report asks members to agree the consultation mandate, which will be used to seek the views and opinions of our communities in relation to the future provision of public conveniences across the region. I've got Karen and Harry again here to answer any questions. I think it's pretty much an empowering paper, isn't it? Yeah. Jane?
Just thinking about the stakeholders, if you look at the list of stakeholders here, would it be appropriate? I just realised I missed it. You've got it in already. Thank you, Chairman. I'll leave it. It was the D&G Youth Council, which I read down the list and did not read, didn't see, but it's there.
Yes, no, absolutely right. Yes. So I think this is an empowering paper. It gives officers the direction to go away and start the work, basically. Are we happy to agree? Agreed. Thank you very much. Right, okay. Item 20, the face-to-face integrated customer service centres. The report asks members to agree to the consultation mandate, which will be used to seek the views and opinions of our communities concerning the access points that will support the agreed 5 customer hubs located in Stranraer, Castle Douglas, Dumfries, Annan and Gretna. Again, Harry and them here to answer the questions on this. So, are we anything to add to the report? No. Good. Straight to questions. Jane?
Will we be consulting communities with respect to, quote unquote, their facilities, if you see what I mean? Is it kind of aimed at... The reason I ask this question is because of somewhere like the Glen Kens, for example, actually 3 or 4 communities are interested in something in Dalry. And if we were just going to consult Dalry Community Council, then we'd miss Balmaclellan, New Galloway. Do you see what I mean? So I'm really sort of wanting to make certain that there is that all-encompassing.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. No, and it's exactly the point I want to try and capture, that this process will be absolutely inclusive as possible and look at more of a total place perspective as opposed to just the facility in question. So no, hopefully that's a reassurance.
Jim.
Pardon? Oh, no, just an observation again. I hope that we were given a reassurance some time ago that this isn't a scheme to close them by some other means, and that we're simply trying to create a better facility and a more customer-focused facility in each of the communities that are mentioned in the paper.
Chair, yeah, I'll take that on board, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Hey, sorry? Well, absolutely. So we'll move to recommendations. So we're asked to agree the consultation mandate in relation to integrated facilities review as detailed within the report and the appendix. Happy to agree? Thanks very much. Thanks, Elaine. Thanks, Harry. Right. We've been so professional, we've got through everything before lunch. I'm actually minded now just to not have a break, get this last item on the agenda, take it now, and so there's a handout to come out to everybody. So and then take 10 minutes to read it, and I will.
Put it on it, just say it's 12:05.
That's it. We'll reconvene at 5 past, okay? Because it's sorry, it's only. Eh? No. It's your position, Molly. I've a speech to somebody to read out here. It's too long not to give you something to read. Yeah. Okay, folks, back to order. Okay, ready? Doogie? Ready to go? Right, all right, no, it's okay. Right, we're on to item 17. I'm not proposing to read out that whole thing again that you've all had a copy of. Yeah, I think the salient bits in it, we've got Karen here, important the early bits, so Karen's here with Harry T to answer any questions on the report itself, and I think that sums up quite neatly where we are. So I don't think we've anything to add, Harry, because that's most up-to-date information we've got.
No, I think you've summed it up nicely, Chair.
Yeah, Chair, I welcome your additional paper that does lay out the position as it is currently. But if we think back to a number of years, 2 or 3 years ago, when the hall was up for closure and we had no one interested, we have now 2 bodies interested. And I think that we should look at these positively in terms of what they both can offer, in terms of social value, and look at their business plan. I think in terms of your last 2 paragraphs, I think that sums it up well. That we should, and in the report I would be moving for option 3, but this one does cover it, that we should allow it to continue to try and sort of so it does become sustainable, and that we have a proper asset transfer to the most appropriate body, and that's considering both organisations and indeed what their business plan would say. So in my opinion, it's well summed up in the last 2 paragraphs, and I would hope that that's what we can agree to continue for a period of time, to come back to this committee and see what the options are for us to move forward.
No, thanks, Willie. Rob?
Thank you, Chairman. I certainly agree with Councillor Scobie, definitely not closure. This is clearly a slightly unusual set of circumstances, I think it would be fair to say. And I do indeed remember when there was nobody interested, and the whole matter has a lengthy history. I remember Councillor Dick telling me a great deal about it on many occasions in the past. I think the only difference of opinion I would have with Councillor Scobie is over who bears the costs. I would be inclined to move option 2. I recognise that there is a budget pressure if we do anything else. So on that basis, would be content to move option 2. Certainly noting that we want to get to a position that's sustainable for the community, but we also have to have a position that's sustainable for the service.
Adam?
Yeah, no, quite happy to second Councillor Davidson.
I take it on the back of that you've accepted option 3 as my motion then?
You did move that, but I don't know if you've got a seconder or not. Andy, you want a second?
Chair, I'll second.
And that's definitely with no closure?
No, I don't think there's any, as we're striving not to close the facility for the local community. It's whether the people currently in the place make a contribution towards the upkeep or not, I think is the $64,000 question, or the £3,000 question, if you get my drift. So I don't think there's much benefit here going round and round about the hooses. Let's just go straight to the vote, I think. Can you just summarise what we're...
Excuse me, Chair. So this is the votes concerning recommendation 2.4. Yeah. Okay. So we've got a motion proposed.
No, it's options. There's options.
Yes, recommendation 2.4, and then that agree the preferred option. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the preferred so we've got a recommendation regarding 2.4 from Councillor Davidson. That would be option 2, seconded by Councillor Wilson. And regarding the consideration of those options, we have an amendment proposed by Councillor Scobie, seconded by Councillor Giusti. That it would be option 3. Okay. So going to the vote then, Chair.
Motion. Jane, sorry.
I'm so sorry. Can we be absolutely clear? Are we doing the whole recommendations in a one-er? We haven't discussed anything else, or are we just doing option 2 for Port Patrick?
Just the option 2.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair. Councillor Campbell.
Motion.
Councillor Davidson.
Motion.
Councillor Dempster.
Motion.
Councillor Fairbairn.
Amendment.
Councillor Giusti.
Amendment.
Councillor Howie. Councillor Ingalls. Councillor Little.
Motion.
Councillor Maitland.
Motion.
Councillor Marshall. Oh, no, sorry. Councillor Ronnie's not there either. Councillor Scobie.
Amendment.
Councillor
I think we
Stitt.
couldn't.
Motion.
Councillor Stitt.
Said motion.
Yeah, Councillor Tate answered at the same time. Councillor Tate. Councillor Wilson.
Motion.
And Councillor Young.
Motion.
Okay.
Right, thank you. So that's, let's go back to the recommendations then.
Can we get the result of the vote?
Sorry, the result. Sorry,
Motion carried 11 votes to 5.
We'll go back to the rest of the recommendations. Obviously, we note the progress made from 2013 to 2019, Appendix 1. Okay. Note the progress which has been made with 2019-20, Appendix 2. Consider the progress that has been made with the remaining 8 facilities within facilities review. And then agree the preferred option for Port Patrick Village Hall, which we've just done. Yep. Okay, happy with that? Then we have to note the progress with community facilities in Whithorn, and in the light of this, agree to lease Whithorn Town Hall to Bravehearts Amateur Boxing Club, or if they are unable to commit to this, the temporary closure of Whithorn New Town Hall from the end of August 2019 to secure a reduction in the projected budget pressure for 2019-20 to £5,042. That's paragraph 3.22 and 3.26. And then 6, agree to receive a further report, the September 19 committee. That's at paragraph 3.37. Are you happy with that? Agreed. Thank you. Thanks very much, folks. I know.
Harry.
I know, that's right. Yeah, okay, no, just, Willie, you just have a seat, please, for 2 seconds. Okay, I've got another urgent business to deal with today, but before I close the meeting, I would have to advise members that this will be the last Communities Committee that Harry Thompson attends before his retirement. Harry has served in Dumfries and Galloway for 27 years, with his career commencing with Nithsdale District Council as a management auditor, and since that time has undertaken a wide range of roles with commercial services and EEI. More recently, Harry was appointed at the outset of the Communities Directorate to his current post as Head of Civic and Local Services. During these last 4 years, Harry has led the implementation of the Communities model, with his emphasis on local people and communities being actively involved in the design and delivery of services. Key highlights for Harry during his time have included the introduction of the Council's commitment to participatory budgeting through community conversations, the introduction of the street scene way of working at ward level, and the opening of the Cucubry Galleries. So on behalf of all the members, I'd like to think we should show appreciation, thank Harry for his contribution to public life in our region, and wish him a happy retirement. Okay. That concludes the business for today. Thanks very much, folks, getting through a big agenda in a very business-like way. Thank you.